So, first of all, how many of you have used generics before? Generics for any collection, let's say any collection. Okay. So, let's find out what generics for the collections is. So, this is what we are going to discuss today. We'll be first talking about the non-generic collections. And I'll show you what are the non-generic collections. And after that, we'll move into generic collections. To the most famous generic class, which is list of type T, and the INML of type T, and then what are the constraints on this T. I'll tell you what this T is. And finally, some 2 demos, and finally advantages of generics and some recommendations. Right. So all the collections that we are using in the .NET framework is either directly or indirectly deriving from or implementing this interface, which is iCollection. And there are 2 other main collections, which is interfaces, iList and iLection. Okay, if you talk about collection, there's 2 types mainly, right? One collection is, let's say, I want to store some value, store some single value, right? Another is I can store a key and a value, right? So basically, if you are storing one value, it will be implementing iList. If you are storing a key and a value, we will be using iDictionary, right? So the counterpart, which is the generic, so these are non-generic types. Okay. The generic types are iCollection of type T, iList of type T, and iDictionary of type T, right? So all these interfaces will be again implementing these 3 interfaces, right? So, okay. So if we are moving into non-generic collections, non-generic collections are found in system.collections namespace, which is not included in the default C# template. Let's say if you are creating a console application, this system.collections will not be included there. Instead, there will be system.collections.generic, right? So the examples are array list and the hash tables, and it will be storing only one type. It can be a string, it can be integer, or it can be object. Basically, it is object, right? So we can add anything, and we have typecast on removal. Let me show you what this array, not the array list are. You can see the code. Okay. Right. So first, I'll create an array list, right? As I can see, it's not resolving because the system.collections is not there. So I'll just okay. Now if you can see, let's try to add something. It accepts an object, right? So I'll just put 2 here, and I'll put some other value, and let's say I want to print this off. No, let's say I want to get the sum of these, right? For that, I can use the void, and to store the sum, I'll declare another variable, right? Okay. Sum equals data. Since there are integers, can I put like this way? Right? No, means I'll have to typecast, right? Which is, since I know this is an integer, I'll just convert into int32 and get the sum, right? Now if I compile, it's working. And let's say I'm going to add a string here, like so. The compiler does not give me any error, so I can add, right? So it is not stopping me by adding, right? So if I run this now, I'm getting error. That's because only the runtime knows it's not an integer, so it's a bit overhead, right? So let's comment this all. Let's add the hash table. Okay. So hash table is the same way. The only difference is I can add key and a value, right? So if I go to hash table, I'm going to add accepting an object as a key and the object as a value. So I'll just put something. Right. Again, I'll be facing off with the same problem. I'll just instead of item, I'll just cut hash table. Let me print the values here. Basically, it's printing me the values. But again, the problem would be, since it is not stopping me from adding anything, I can add anything here, and only the runtime will give me an error, right? So since the problem is I don't know what is there, it can be an integer, it can be a string. Basically, it's the object, right? Even though when I see the code, I can see it's an integer, but still it's an object, right? Because it accepts the object. Okay, now have you identified any problems or overheads with non-generic collections? Have you? Please answer. Or you didn't get anything that I just said? Is it? You understood what I said? Wait, so, okay. Since you are not answering, I will say the overheads are, I'll have to typecast when I'm returning the values, right? When I'm getting the values from the non-generic collection, I'll have to typecast, right? So another thing is I can put anything there, and so when the runtime will give me the errors. So that's why the generic collections are there. So generic collections comes under system.collections.generate, which is included in the default C# template. And the examples are listy. Listy is the counterpart of array list, and the dictionary accepts t key and t value, and it is the counterpart of the hash table, right? So when we are adding to generic collections, we can add values only of type that we mentioned. Right. So here the list is, so it can be anything, right? So when I'm creating a list of type T, I'll have to mention what this T is. Is it an int? Is it a string, or is it an employee type? Right. So because of that, since I am mentioning my list will accept only a specific type, I can add item of that particular type, and then no need to box or unbox, right? Okay. I'll give you. I have 2 persons here. If someone knows what's the box and what is unboxing, I will give them a person. Right? Anyone knows? Yeah.
Boxing means wrapping the primitive type inside the object type of the field type. I mean the primitive type is in and the object type is in integer class.
Didn't get it.
So if we take the simple DOUPLD double,
Yeah,
that's the primitive type.
Okay.
And we have the capital DOUPLD, the double class.
No, I would no.
So it's like if you are converting a preference type to a value type, it will be boxes.
Then close.
Integer type should be converting to object, that is boxing. Object to casting to integer, that's called unboxing.
Okay, pretty close. So is it just integer?
It's the primitive type.
Primitive type in the sense string is a primitive type. Okay. So
We can cast anything to object, that's called boxing.
Okay.
We can object to casting to related to another thing, that's called unboxing.
Still, I didn't get the answer what I was looking for. So yeah. Anyone else? So no. To add thing, the double is capital double is the alias, right? So it's not object. It has nothing to do with object and all. It is the alias for double. You can use anything. Okay. So no gift at all. So boxing is value type to reference type. Unboxing is reference type to value type. Okay. Okay. I'll give you another chance to get a person. What are value types? What are reference types?
Reference size, pointer, reference is like objects.
Okay. So every primitive type is a value type. Easy.
No, like string of course reference type.
Huh?
String is a reference type.
String is reference type.
And like integers
Okay.
and now value types.
Okay. Okay. That's correct. I'll give you this one. Okay. Value types are all the primitives except string, and the reference types are classes, arrays, and all. And the struct is a value type. Well, let me give you some a brief explanation on this value and reference type. Let's say I have this int equals, let's say 10, and I have a class called employee, right? Let's say, and here I have this employee type, right? Let's say I have first name and last name, right? And let's say I have a method, some static method or something. Something, right? The difference is, let's say I'm calling this some method, my method. Let's say my method, right? My method, and passing I and E, right? And here I am setting j equals 20 and b equals first equals Charlie, right? Here I am printing the value of I and the value of E dot first. What would be the results? What is clear? It's not clear. I mean, you get the concept, right? You got the concept. So what is the value of I?
10.
Okay, it will be 10. What's the value of here? E dot first name?
Not Jali.
Huh? This one. E dot first name. Can it be Jali or since Jali is from here?
Nothing.
Or null?
Not
Jali. Okay. Why is that it is Jali? Okay, that's the thing, right? So the value types are basically stored in stack, and the reference types are basically stored in heap. Let's say what happens is, so this is not just related to collections, but some knowledge. So what happens is when I control goes to this one, the J will be pushed in to the stack, and once I'm leaving the scope, J is pushed out, right? So there's no J, only I will be there. It is 10, but the reference types in the sense it is referring to the memory location, right? So let's say I am putting B equals null, right? So will I get some error here? No, because I am telling the I have some my employee here. I have two things referencing the same thing. If I say this is null, I don't mind, right? Still it will be there. Got it, right? Okay. Okay. So in general, there are several things. There are generic classes, generic interfaces, generic methods, and generic delegates, right? So this is the most common list of type T. It is implementing all these interfaces, and the T here T is, as I told you, here T can be anything, integer, string, or let's say employee, and it provides some traditional list operations like insert, delete, find, sort, like those things. So here we can find some the methods that we are using here every day. Add is used to add item of type T. Insert, the difference is when you are adding item, it will be adding to the end of the collection. When you are inserting and giving index, it will be adding to that particular place. And remove, we can remove item, remove add. Here will remove all the items from the collection. Who content is used to check whether item is there. We can get index of item, there's a sort, and there's more, right? So, and this is the INumerable interface, which is another most famous interface. Let's say you have seen for each, right? We can use a for each and iterate of a collection. So the possibility of putting for each there is that's because that collection should be implementing INumerable of type T. So it exposes the enumerator, and list T implements INumerable. That's why I can for each use a for each on that. And there are a lot of extension methods you can find out on MSDN, right? So there are generic delegates. So what is a delegate? Delegate. Now, presence. What is a delegate? Function. Good. Wait. Explain.
Function. Delegate you can use many purposes. You can use a function pointer or event, or we can create it for asynchronous execution. So many purposes we can use. Function pointer means define the delegate. If you function public int sum, then we can define the delegate. The return ID should be the same as the function return type, and we can put the any name equal to use the object delegate of equal to, and we can assign only the function name.
Okay, that's great. I'm sorry, I can't give any present for that. So actually, what he told is right. Actually, the delegates are function pointers in C++, right? The importance of having a delegate is it has the ability to point any method which has the same signature as the delegate. Right? Here you can find there's a method. Okay, forget what this line is. If I have a delegate like delegate void my delegate of which accepts string s, it has the ability to point to this method. If I have a delegate void my delegate which accepts int, it has the ability to point to this method. But it can't point to this method because it accepts a string. Right? So delegate T, generic delegates give you the possibility of using a one delegate. We can call both these methods. Right? So okay, now I have told you T can be anything, right? T can be integer, T can be basically anything. So you might be wondering if I can put anything. It's not fair, right? I should have some constraints on that. So I'll show you all these things. So if I put where T is a struct. Struct is a value type, which means I can put any value types here, except string. String, even though string acts as a value type, it is a reference type. Right? So if I put where T is last, so T must be a reference type. If I put where T equals some base class, my T should be deriving from this base class. Right? If I put T and some interface here, my T should be implementing this interface. And if I put T and new here, my T should never have a constructor which accepts some parameters. Right? Which is T must have a parameterless constructor. Okay, so I'm not a good fan of doing presentations, reading slides. Let me go with the demo. I can find system.collections.generic here because it is included in the default template. So I'll just start by adding a list, right? And it needs a T. T can be anything, right? So first I'll put a string there, right? And put list, new list, right? So have you done this in your project? You have done this, right? How many of you haven't? How many of you have first seen this today? No one. So everyone knows. Okay. So list add. So I'll just add some fruit here, right? So okay. So since it doesn't look nice, I have two lines. I'll use the collection initializer, right? This is called collection initializer. And here I can add some puts here. Right? And let's say I want to get the count. I'll first have to list. Right. If I run this, I can get the count. Right. Then again, let's say I want to print this all. Since iList is implementing iNumberable of type T, I can write for each very easily. Okay, it's printing me the values. And let's say I want to sort this out. Right? Sorting, let's say alphabetically order. And I'll just click list dot sort, right? And then again the items are sorted in the alphabetical order, right? Let's say I want to reverse this. I want to put this in reverse order. I'll just click. I'll just put reverse. Okay. Now it's reversed, right? Now let's say I want to find a particular item. List, fine. And it accepts a predicate, a map, which is simply as a lambda expression. I'll just put I'm passing the string where s equals, right? So it returns me a string. So I'll just so it is printing the value. Okay. So then let's say now this is a primitive type, right? String, right? Now let's say I want to create a list of type employee. I will have employee ID. And I will have first name, right? So I'll just comment them all. Now let's say how to create a list of type employee. How to do that? Simple list of type employee, right? So I can simply use the collection initializer. Just 2 more lines. And some name. Okay. Now same as that, I can just use a for each on my employee and print the value. Okay. Now let's say I want to sort this. How can I sort this? Yeah, I can put order by. Simple. I can no need to take that all that trouble. I'll just put employee sort. Right? Same as that. And when I'm giving a sort, I should tell to sort by what, right? So let's say I have 2 employees. And x dot, let's say first name, should be compared with y dot first name, right? Yeah, it's sorted, right? It's not sorted because I haven't printed it out. So I'll just so now it's sorted, right? So now let's say I want to create a custom compare logic. How can I do that? so that I am going to implement an interface which is called iCompare. There is iComparable of type T and iCompare. Do you know the difference between these two? Do you know? No. Okay. Actually, iComparable says I am there to compare, right? I am there to compare with some other things. What iCompare do is he will do the comparison of two types. Right? So this is the non-generic interface, this is the generic interface, and this will compare two separate items. Separate items say, in the sense, let's say I am here and I can compare these two people, right? If I am implementing iComparable of type T, I am here and I am going to compare with myself with some other, right? Got it? Wait, so I will be using iCompare of type. No. Okay. Rather than modifying this class, I'll just create another class which is employee compare with implement, right? So if I implement this interface, I'll be getting a method which is called compare. So yeah. Right? So what is that? Employee implement iCompare of type employee, right? Okay. So here what my logic is, I am going to compare by employee ID. So I am going to write a logic here. If x dot employee ID is larger than y dot employee ID, return 1, right? If else if x dot ID equals y dot return 0, else return 0, not 0, return -1, right? So if I, rather using this one, if I put employee dot sort and my iCompare, which is new employee compare, so the result should be the employee should be sorted by employee ID. Is right? It is sorted by employee ID. So, okay. Up to this point, do you have any questions or no questions? Or didn't understand? What? Please. Okay. First of all, have you understood what I just told you? Please. Okay. So that's very nice to hear. So no questions means you got it straight. If not, please do ask. Right? So that is my list of type T. And let's say I want to create my own custom generic collection. Right? So let's see how we can do that. off by creating a class. I'll name it my generic class of type what? What should be the type? Of course, it should be T, right? Because I'm going to create my own generic collection, right? Which is like list of type T. So I'm going to create my own generic collection. So I'm creating my generic class of type T, right? A collection should hold. Collection should have some collection to hold some values, right? So I'll just have a array of type T, and I'm naming it as my array, right? An array should have a length. To get it, I am creating another property called count, right? So I'll make this private because I don't want anyone to see this. Now I'm going to create a constructor, my generic class, and it accepts a length. And here in my under the constructor, I'm going to initialize my array, right? The length of the array should be length, and I'm just equalizing count to length, right? So okay, now I have a generic class. Now let's add some generic methods. So every connection should have a method to add values and to return value, right? So I'll just create a generic method to add values. Public void, let's say add item, right? The type is what? I'll give a position to be entered, and what should be the type? I mean, okay, I have a generic collection, and I'm going to add an item, right? So what should be the type of that item? It should be T. My array dot I should be there, right? Same way, I'm going to add a method which will return me some data. The type should be T, okay, item index, right? The index of the item, it will return me okay. So now let's create the collection. Let's initialize my custom collection. It's not list, it's what my generic class of type, say integer, right? And I should pass the length, right? Let's say 3. I'm going to add 3 items there. I can call the method, and here you can see that I can add items only of type integer, right? So my index is, let's say, 0, and I'm going to add some integers. Say how can I print these values? How can I, let's say I want to print these values, get the values. How can I do that? Please, I can't see. Now this is simple. Now I have a collection and I have added some values. How to get the value? I have called a method. I can iterate. My property is there. I can just call the get item and pass the item. That's because I don't have to use this one. So it's printing me the values, right? Now, okay, now that's simple. Now let's say I want to create my generic class of type char. Right? I'll put char here, and instead of adding integers, I'll just put v. Right? If I run this, it will print me the value. Now let's say this doesn't look nice, right? I'm using a for loop. I want to use a for each loop. How can I do that? So if I try to, for example, if I try to for each on my generic class, if I compile, I'm getting error because I don't have a enumerator there. So how can I use for each in my collection?
Implement an enumerator.
Great. Simple. I remember of type what? Okay. And it will create me two methods. This is the generic type implementation of enumerator, and this is the non-generic type of it. And I'll just use for up to count and yield return my array, the value of type, right? So in my generic non-generic implementation, I'll just call this one. That's done. Okay, how many have you seen this yield keyword? Anyone? It's a simple question, right? Yes or no? No? Who has seen? Who has not? Who has seen? You have seen? Is it? No. Okay. Have you seen or have you used it?
Yes.
Have you used? Okay. What this does?
It's every time returning.
Yeah, that's right. So let's say I don't have yield here. So what will happen is it will just return, and it will not enumerate. It will just return. So difference of yield return is it is returning and then moving into the next item, and then returning it and then again moving to the next item. And actually the enumerator is built based on this yield return, right? Okay. So okay, now I can, if I compile, it's working nicely. I'll just right line cross right. So it's working. I'll just comment this out. It's working, right? So now let's say I want to sort this. If I try to put sort, it's not there. This is my custom collection, right? And let's say I want to sort this by using a bubble sort. You know what bubble sort is? I'm pretty sure you know, but you might not be able to remember. So, what is a bubble sort? Okay, bubble sort. So you know bubble sort. You should know, but you can't remember, right? Okay, what bubble sort is? It's comparing two adjacent items. If let's say I'm 0 and there's another one. There's a person which is 1. I'm comparing with myself and this one. If I'm bigger than that, I'm going there. He is coming back, and it is right. It keeps going. So that is bubble sort. So let me write a method to do the bubble sort. If I get stuck, maybe you can help me. Right? Okay, I have this method. It's bubble simple method, and I have two for loops. Okay, so my logic should be if I am larger than the next item, first let me define a temp of type T. Okay, so if I am larger than my next, what I should do is I should put it into T, not into temp. I should be moving into the next position. I should be the next position. Pretty clean, but I'm getting a error here. So can anyone tell me what this error is? Okay, operator T cannot be applied to operands of type T. Not actually. No. Okay. So this is type T, right? And let's say I'm creating my generic class of type integer. Now I can compare two items. Let's say I am putting string or let's say employee. So how can I check? I can put this operator here. I can't. If I use string, I can't check who is larger than, right? So for that, what I can do is I can implement. I can use the my compare to method of iComparable of type T. So for that, I'm putting a constraint here where T should be implementing iComparable of type T. So when I put that, I'm getting the possibility of putting compare to, and I'm comparing with the next one. And if I am larger than the next, it should be greater than 0, right? So what this compare to does is, it will be comparing with, so myself is comparing with this one. If I am larger than this one, I will be getting a number more than 0. If I am equal, if we are equal, it should be equal 0. If the other way around, it should be minus, right? So I am comparing, basically I am comparing myself with the next. So now
They should be decided to find it.
This one doesn't matter, right? So no, it should work. Let's see, right? So okay, now let me print first. I'm getting set A, B, and if I put list, not list, and I'm bubble sorting it, and I'm printing. Okay, now it's sorted, right? And let's say, okay, now it's very primitive type, and I have employee type here. And I do properties. Let's say its name, age, right? So now I'm going to create my list of type employee. I'll just comment this out. And here I'm changing to employee. And I'm getting some error, so I'll just forget it and add some new employees. So I'm going to repeat the same thing. I'll just change the values. Still I'm getting error. Can anyone tell me what this error is? He'll be getting the mouse. I'll show you the code. I have my generic class which implements enumerable of type T, and I'm putting a constraint here, right, to the T, and I have some methods there, and I'm creating my collection of type employee, and I have added some employees. So still I'm getting a error, which is this.
The employee class should implement that interface.
Employee class does not implement enumerable.
I compare.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's it, right? So you will get this one, right? So here I am putting a constraint where my D should implement comparable, right? That's what the constraint does is, right? So if I put stuff here, my D should be a value type. If I put class here, it should be a reference type. So I will not be able to create my collection of type integer. So now it's I'm putting a constraint. What is my constraint? My D should implement comparable. So simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement comparable of type employee, right? So it will create me a method. So in simple, I'm going to return compare now current age minus the employee's age, right? The moment I do that, I have no errors. So if I run this now, okay, so instead of item, let me print item dot age. So now my employees should be sorted by age. Right, see, it's sorted. No, not you can't see. So this is my initial collection, and this is my sorted collection, right? So now, okay. How many of you have any questions? Do you have any questions about these? So now, any questions? No questions. Please. Did you get what I have told? I'm just wondering because if you have no questions. So are you clear? Yes, no questions. Yeah. Okay. So that's about generic collection, right? So apart from this, let me show. We are at the end of the presentation. So let me show you what generic delegates does, right? So let's say I have some methods here, static void, my method one which accepts integer. And I will have another method which accepts a string. So if I don't have generic delegates, what I will be writing is I will have two delegates, one for integer and another for string, right? Right. But if you can have a look at these two methods, there is something in common, right? It returns void, return is same, and it accepts a one parameter, right? The parameter type is different, but still it is accepting a single parameter. So what I can do is, instead of writing these two delegates, I can write a delegate void of type t, which accepts, right? So here if I want to create a delegate of type integer, I will just put int my method should be my method 1, right? If I call it, it's calling my method 1, right? And let's say if I want to make it a string delegate, I'll just change this, and my method should be my method 2. I'll be passing the string, right? So it will call my method 2. So basically that's what the generics do, right? So the advantage of having a delegate is it's reusable, right? So only the difference is the type, right? I don't have to create separate collections, generic, non-generic collections. I can use the generic collections. And the other thing is efficient. That's because I don't have to cast. Because I know if I'm creating a list of type integer, I know there's only int there. Because I won't be able to add strings or any objects. Because if I'm trying to add it, the compiler will give me an error before compiling, when the compiling happens, right? So it's type safe. So the thing is, it's type safe and even in compiler. So in non-generic collections, what happens is, it's not type safe in the compiler, right? If I'm adding integer, I can add string, I can put anything. When I'm returning the values only, I will have to cast, right? Here there's no casting needed because I know the type, right? And there are some couple of recommendations, which is, so for all the applications which targets .NET 2.0 or later, please use generic collections instead of non-generic collections. So generic collections they are from .NET 2.0, right? Now it's 4.5.1. It's long time there. So we have only the difference is we haven't used it. So, and the one most important thing is, don't use custom generic collection classes like I have created now unless it is very much needed, because all the types, generic collection types which are in the .NET framework like listy, qt, stackd, it's there, right? Use this. If those types does not provide what we need, create a custom collection class. And the other thing is, let's say your generic collection class is accessing by several threads. If that is your scenario, use the generic collections in system.collection.concurrent namespace, and it is introduced after .NET 4.0. Right. So that's all. If you have any questions, please do ask. So I assume there's no questions because next speaker is coming. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, please reach me. Thank you.
Good evening. It's almost night, right? So, since I have 40 minutes, that's not enough for me. So, if I take 10 more minutes, would it be okay with you? No faces, right? So, how many of you are using PFS? At least for source control. Anything other than source control? What else do you use PFS for?
Issue tracking. Issue tracking.
So, I mean, any guys who is working in the industry who is using PFS for any other thing other than the source control? No one. I think you don't use build. No? Okay. Okay, so today actually I'm going to discuss about something really important, like how to deploy and test. Of course, after building, right? Build, deploy, and so what is this build, deploy, and test? Do you do that normally? You do, right? Manually. How do you do that? You just compile your source code, maybe in a release mode, and then copy somewhere, or you create a setup package and go and install in your server. So many activities happening, right? So many times you are coming back to your development environment and searching for SP that is missing in the production, and then hurrying back to the customer with SP and then installing it there, right? So, is there any guy who has not done it? Anybody? Okay, all of you have done it, including myself, correct? Okay, so we all have done it. So that is why this automation is really useful. So before I talk about the capabilities, just okay. As usual, I don't have much of slides, but just to get you all into the topic, okay. Sorry guys, if I switch off one. So we are going to discuss about build, deploy and test. And test is of course a huge topic. So I will just give you a hint how to start automated testing, but I will not go into details because I don't have time for that. So we will discuss build and deploy. No. Okay. So why we should automate? So what are the benefits that we are going to get? Any benefits that you think of your problems and then definitely you can find a solution without lunch. So if you don't have any problems in, I mean, your day-to-day software development, no? Okay, first save time, right? Because normally when you do manually release, how much time will you take? Depends, right? Okay. Certain people who are doing CRM deployments at Navantis, they take about 1 day to do a deployment sometimes. Why? CRM, dynamic CRM is something that is again a trouble, right? Because you can't even check in your customizations if you do not follow a certain procedure. So in that context, it's very difficult to keep track of things that you are doing, right? So normally when they do a deploy, definitely something is missing in production UAT, right? Some things are in UAT and they are not in production. That kind of problem is always there, and somebody else has overwritten the changes that someone else has done. So that often happens, right? And luckily that happens just before a release, right? And certain people, like certain developers, I mean, I don't know, all of you are developers. Oh, is there any manager, project managers? No. There is something, but don't apply this to your project development team, right? So normally, some developers, what do they see? Right? They just work on it, and then when project manager asks, I have completed everything, but something unfortunate went and I don't know how it got overwritten. The functionality is not there now, right? So we have to postpone this till the next release. Right? Maybe he's so lazy he has not done anything, right? You don't know because you don't have any track, right? So that's one aspect, right? Then the accuracy, right? Now the accuracy, what I am meaning here by accuracy is, right? You can make sure once you create a certain set of procedures to automate things, I mean, that will not go on different paths, right? It will work on a single given way. So then it's guaranteed that whatever you intend to do will happen. But when you are doing manually, if you are not keeping a checklist, how many of you keep a checklist for a release or a deployment? No, right? See? Right? All of you keep it here, right? You have it here and you try to do it and you miss one or two steps and then, yeah, I missed that, yes. I have copied the SP, right? Okay, I don't know I have changed this SP or not, right? So that is there, right? So if that happens every day, so we should avoid that. Okay? All of that causes pain and stress, right? So your manager owes you like this, right? And he's doing, right? Finish it. So you can't finish it, right? He's standing behind you. And less cost. Why less cost? Any cost? Why less cost?
That's fine.
Less time. And you don't have to ask for a cab to go. That's again a cost, right? And guaranteed delivery quality. Something that was there in the previous release which was really working, now does not work in this release, right? So that would not happen if you automate things, right? It always relies on the source control version of it to get it to the deployment. So if you just manually do, maybe you are getting it from your machine. You are lazy and you are not getting later. So you don't have the version that is in the server, but you don't have something that is in the production. Right? That can happen. Okay. Then this is very effective in Agile plus Scrum type of development. Why? In Agile, what we do is within sprints we do testing. So you often have to deliver something to QA. So if you automate things, it will be much easier. Otherwise, what will happen? What will happen? Right? To do a QA release another day, right? Cost 1 day for a sprint. Okay, if you do 2-3 releases within the sprint will be over. Okay, so we do not automate. So you have not automated anything, right? Yes. Why? You have a reason. One thing you do not know, right? We do not. Any way of, tell me a simple way of automating things with whatever that you. Maybe you can write some batch file or something, right? To do certain activities, and you can use a PowerShell script incorporated with the batch file or something, execute certain PowerShell scripts and get your work done. At least try to automate like that. Like forget about DFS, forget about all the licensing, right? Try to do something like that. Right? That will save you a lot of time in future. Right? And okay, this is one problem many software houses have in Sri Lanka especially. So I will show you certain things that it's not saying you don't have to get license, but you have to get license, but you can do with minimum things, right? This is I am having only a laptop here, but I am going to show you a certain environment which can, you can try something like that initially, right? And one other thing is we are kind of lazy, right? So we just like to do it in the old way that we were doing. Just X-copying is the best thing. Right? I manually deploy my website, that is the best way to do it. That's my belief, right? Okay. This is one more thing, right? Certain people are like, they are just staying like this in the company, right? Just trying to go out. And so they don't care, right? Whether you deploy it in the next year or not, your client is satisfied or not, you don't care. Right? So don't work like that. Even if you are leaving a company, leave with a good people, right? So have that in mind. And this is the greatest one, right? My old days are really, really proven, right? So proven things. So I don't have to bother, I don't have to change it. So how many of you are in this category? Anybody? No one. You are very lucky because you will not like this one. Right? This is what I have to say. Right? If you are not, if you are thinking in the last category way, you are the most ridiculous and stupid people. Right? Otherwise, there's no point, right? If you do all the things in all way, so what we are going to achieve? Nothing. Right? The modern world has changed a lot, so we have to go with that. Okay. I think so that's all about my slides. So we will look at the real thing from now on, and I will just explain few things because I hope you don't know much about this. Right? Do you know what is a lab environment? Anybody? Team competitions have a lab environment. It is something like chemistry lab. When you say lab, right, you imagine some beakers and it is something like that. No, actually it's a software, right, where you can manage environments, right? So environments in the sense like you can handle standard environments like physical machine, or you can handle virtual environment as well. Now, to handle virtual environments, you have to have a separate mechanism, like you can use Hyper-V or something, and System Center Virtual Machine Manager. If you use that, there's a lot of advantages. So that is one thing. And using those things, you can create lab environments. For these lab environments, you can connect your domain, outside domain with a trust. And if you don't have a trusted domain with your client, what should you do? What should you do? Yeah, maybe certificate. So, but you can create a workgroup kind of thing and little bit tricky thing. Create the same user here and there. And in that server, you create the same username and password. And this server, you create the same username and password, and you put it to both of them in a single work group. What will happen? When you say dot username and password, it will work in both machines. You know that theory, right? I know certain people have access. Samba share using this way, right? Right? People have done from Windows environment, you can access Samba environment using this, right? So same theory applies. So you can use something like that. Okay. So slides. Okay, I am not ending this one, right? So 15 minutes of talking, and then we are going to look at something. Okay, here I am using free VirtualBox, and I have several machines, but I will show you the important machines here. One, this is this is a primary domain controller, plus me being little bit stupid last night, installed TFS there, right, in the primary domain controller, and I had a lot of trouble. So if you are installing TFS, don't install it on a PDC. Don't do that. Don't ever do that, because you will have to spend 2-3 days without sleep. I actually spent 1 day yesterday night, right? Because since I have installed it in primary domain controller, I had lot of security issues which I cannot rectify. Primary domain controllers won't allow you to do certain activities. Why? It is the most important thing in your domain, right? So it won't allow you to mess around with security. So TFS needs certain other things. So I have to put a lot of work around to make it to this session, right? That's right. So don't never install on a primary domain controller. TFS. Install it in a separate server. And now in this one I have primary domain controller, then TFS, then my build server, then my test controller. Have you heard about this test controller or build server? What is a build server? Now these things are actually if you have TFS in your offices, and if you have TFS license, you already have these things, right? So please start using these things to get the real potential out of TFS. Otherwise, what will happen? You just use it as SVN or any other VSS or something like that, and you will not get any benefit out of it. Right? So start using these things. That's why I will not tell you exactly how to do things today, but I will show you certain things, and you will know this can be done. So you can go and try and just ping me if you have troubles. Right? So this will have a test controller plus build controller and a build service and a build agent in this particular domain controller, which is not at all recommended, right? You should have separate servers for these activities, but since I am having a very small laptop where I have limited resources, I can only have 3 machines, so I wanted to do this demo, so that's why I put all the things in one machine, right? So this machine has all these things. I will show you later this machine, right? Then I have my development machine that is installed with Visual Studio plus any development tools that are needed, right? So that is that machine, and then there's another QA web server. This is, I just wanted to show you something like deployment server or something, right? So this can be a production server or anything, right? So this is the environment that we are going to do, right? So I do development here. So TFS will take care of my version controlling, and it will take care of my software building, and it will take care of deployment, and it should be deployed to this QA server. That should happen. So how are we going to do that? Okay. How many of you have created the build definition in TFS? No. I think I have done this last year March. How to create a build definition. Have you tried that? Anybody got online TFS cloud account? Okay. That is also, again, you can create a CID or something, right? I mean, just a build definition. You haven't tried that. Okay. So you are lazy, right? So don't be lazy. Okay, so we will have a look at that as well, right? So I will start from my development environment. Right? So I have a very small web application here. Okay, we are used to these things, right? Web application and few DLL, right? Forget about this other project, right? The deploy fix. I hope you guys can see, right? So I have a very small web application which is having only one web page that is doing actually nothing, right? When I click a button, it will display a message. So I'm not going to talk about code today, so I'm not worrying about that, right? So don't worry about this particular application. We are not going to worry about that, but we are going to look at how deployment should. Right? So this is my web application. If I run it, I will get a window open. Internet Explorer window open, and then when I click on a button, it will display a message. That's it, right? So that message is taken from a class in this library, right? So for the sake of deployment display, what I have done is I have even added this lib file into this DLL into global assembly cache, right? Okay. I think I have a question worth of this, right? Can anybody tell me where is GAP4 framework 4? Where is GAP4 framework 4? The path. Is it C Windows Assembly? Okay, I have given you the hint. Is it C Windows Assembly or some other one? Okay, what is another one? Microsoft is there?
Windows, Microsoft.net,
Okay.
then framework.
I don't have two things, right? I only have one. Okay. Which are not these? Okay. Since you started, I will give this to you. It's on C, Windows, Microsoft.net, then inside that, there's framework assembly, right? So you should know these things, right? You don't care, right? You just use GAC-util and add it. You don't care whether it's added or not, right? Is that it? Okay, I can imagine how you deploy your things to production. So that is why I told you, right? So see how lazy you guys are. And start looking for these things. Where are the GAC keys, right? It should be a problem that you should be asking. When you are adding using GAC-util and you don't know where it is. You should know the destination. And you should manually go and check whether that is already there. Don't believe GAC-util. And in your production server, do you get GAC-util when you install framework? I don't have so many gigs on one.
Yes.
You install .NET framework and you get GAC-util. That is what you're saying. Is that the truth or not?
Yes.
So how many years you have been developing on .NET? I don't know. Now how many years .NET has been released? Nobody knows that. What's the initial version? Framework? 1.0. Sure. It's not okay. So see, now you guys don't know whether the GAC-util exists in .NET framework. Where does that come? The GAC-util? It is coming with the SDK, right? SDK is getting installed when you are installing Visual Studio, right? So GAC-util is only available in your development machine. It is not available in your production server. So how you are going to add to GAC in production server? Easy way, install Visual Studio. That's the way, right? Yeah, very nice. You can have Visual Studio and you can start developing. You don't do that, right? But when you're adding to get something, right, you should either manually do it, or you should use a PowerShell script kind of thing and do it. Right? Or you should do some other way, manually do it, right? Or you should install SDK, right? Only SDK, but still it's not recommended in a production environment. Now, for example, Nowadays clients normally, I don't know the Sri Lankan clients, normally our clients are European or North American, those clients are not allowing us to put anything other than the framework in their production server. Right? If we are putting something else, they ask why. Right? Are you guys stupid? You can't, I mean, Microsoft says when you install framework, you can run your application. Right? So if you are installing SDK or Visual Studio, you should have a better reason. Because you can't add a file to get, can you do that? I mean, that's not an excuse, right? So don't do it that way. So because that actually eats resources. Plus, it gives unnecessary problems in your production server. So never ever do that, right? This is very important, right?
Okay. Time is going very quickly, so I will.
Okay. So what we were talking about cat, right? Okay. That's right. Now you guys don't know base. You guys don't know where the get utility is. So how can I show you how to deploy, right? Think about it, right? So go home and start reading these things about where the get utility is, where there is this framework being installed, and where the libraries are, where the class library files are there in the framework. I mean, all these things you should know to have an effective way of developing plus deploying. Being a developer, you need to be knowing these things, how the production environment will work. Otherwise, you will be just like, if Visual Studio is there, your solutions will work. Otherwise, it will not work. Don't create solutions like that. It should work in all the production environment, right? So, okay, right. You can write in this code, right? So I will write some things here, so you will know. Okay, one is the lab environment. So lab environment is something where you manage virtual machines or standard environment machines, right? This is what will be happening, right? So you will have development workstations like this. So many development workstations, right? And you will have a, for simplicity, you will only have a QA environment, right? So what you want to do is develop here and make sure this gets updated automatically when you need to do a review, right? So to do that, we can use few things. One is TFS. So to do what? Multiple developers do development and their code will be this TFS server. TFS server, right? This TFS server, okay. TFS server is a separate thing and lab environment is a separate thing, right? So TFS server will have all the source code, right? So why do we use TFS server for this? To keep the central repository of our work. So this is the latest copy. Why? This is the latest valid copy because everybody's work will be here, right? So you have to make sure this is always in a state of valid, right? That means this should be always compiling, at least compiling, right? You can't make sure using a tool that this is running okay, right? I mean, there's no way to check, right? And then, isn't it? There's no way to check. Definitely, yes. That can be done, right? You can create automated tests. So you can make not 100%, but to some extent, right? We can say 80%. Okay, we can guarantee 80% our application is core functionality working okay using automated testing, right? So we will look at how to do that later, but okay, for the time being, just think all your valid code is here, right? Now what we have to do is we have to take it from here and deploy into this environment to help that we use this lab. Right? So we are going to use this lab to help us integrating these environments together. Now, first thing is creating a build. Okay. So what do we do by this? Just right click and compile. Right? That is what we are doing as a build. Right? So that can be automated using what? You can use something like when you go to your Team Explorer, you get something called build, right? And you can create a new build definition here. So I will show you a continuous integration build definition, right? So I have explained this one, so I am not going into detail, but I will just tell you something. This will be the name, and next one will be the trigger, how this is initiated. And next one is the workspace. Workspace means your source settings. What is the workspace that you are going to build? Or, I mean, when you checking code, to where I should initiate a build, right? So this workspace defines where are you checking your code, and actually what TFS will do is it will download the specified workspace into the build machine and compile it there. Right? So that is what's going to happen. The build agent machine will download the specified workspace from here into that physical machine and then compile it there using what? Using what? Visual Studio. MS Build. Yes, that is correct. MS Build. You use MS Build to compile it. Right? So, can you test this in your development environment? Yes, of course. You can execute MS Build and try it, right? But you don't have to. Right? Because, I mean, you don't have to. You can write, you can build it, right? So, I mean, but there's a difference. How you build, right? That is why sometimes when you compile in Visual Studio it works, but MS Build will fail. Why? It actually looks for all the relative paths and should be valid, right? Because it only downloads the workspace out of source control, so it doesn't know anything about your Visual Studio, how you set up manually things. It doesn't know, right? It looks at the CS project file, and how many have you opened CS project file in a notepad and checked, or unloaded it in Visual Studio and opened it in edit mode and checked what is there? How many? Only, right? See, how many years have you been developing on .NET? About 5-6 years. So none of the time you have opened your CS project file in a notepad. Right? Why? Right? Just have a look what is there. Right? How Microsoft doing things. Have a look at that and understand that. Right? Then only you can play around with these things. Otherwise, you will be just coding your entire life. Right? So you will be doing nothing more than that other than coding. So if you want to be improved, just start doing these things. Right? Just simple thing, right? I will show you how to do that. Okay. For example, I have a web application here, right? This is a CS project file, right? So what I can do is I can say right click, unload project here, right? Then I can right click and edit, right? Then I can see lot of stuff, right? So what does this mean? What is happening here? It is actually how Visual Studio or Microsoft or MS Build identifies where are the other related resources, or what are the files in this project, or where are the other reference assemblies, or what actions should be done. All these things are defined in here, right? So if you open the solution file, SNN file in a notepad, you will see the project link and all these information, right? So open these things and have a look, right? Otherwise you will not understand what happens behind the scene when we do automated deployment. And to rectify certain things, like it's not very easy when you are setting it up initially, right? It takes some time for you to start things. So when you are setting up things, you need to manipulate certain items here as well. Right? I will show you, right? We have few minutes now. So we will go very quickly. Even if I have to break this into 2 sessions, I will only, do in a phase that you guys can understand, right? So I will, maybe we will have to stop after halfway, but still, that's okay, right? I can quickly go through everything, but you won't understand anything. Is that the way you guys want, or I will do slowly and then we will continue in a coming month? What was the better way? Do slowly, right? Okay, we will do slowly. Okay, so this is what workspace is all about. Then, this is where you specify where the build drop will be created. That means, when TFS compiles things, where the source code will be stored. Now, for a continuous integration build, are we defining a build drop location or not? No. Why? It is a build we use just to check the validity of the server source code. A continuous integration build means every time you check in something, TFS will build the server version, right? Do we have to copy that to a drop location? No. We want to just make sure whoever checks in doesn't break the build. That means doesn't check in not compilable code, right? So we are just making sure everybody checks in code that can be compiled successfully, right? So to make sure that only we use this CI build, right? So that is why we don't have a drop location there, right? Okay, and this is the workflow. Okay. It will take about 2 seconds. So this is the workflow that defines how the build should happen. Now, can you amend this thing? Is it possible? How can you do that? This is nothing but XAML workflow, right? So if you know a bit of XAML class, if you do a bit of .NET coding, you can actually add custom events here, right? Custom activities here. So we have done a lot of custom activities at our office to enable a lot of things. We don't like the version how it appears default way, so we have created our own way of creating version number. So I will show you an example what I'm talking about. That kind of thing. So we are going to do that just to change things the way default works. But default is enough to start definitely. When you are starting this, just don't start using customizing things, right? Now, after actually at Navantis, they have been using these things about a year or so before actually started customizing these things. Now we are actually customizing these things and introducing certain new steps and certain changes into the build process, right? But before that, actually we were using the default things that was available. So I will not go into each parameter, but I will just tell you this. In here you can define a solution and a configuration. Now, what is the configuration of a build? What is the configuration of a Visual Studio solution? Any idea? What is the configuration?
The environment.
What is the configuration of a build?
CPU architecture 86
So it is how you build, right? Whether you build this in debuggable mode or release kind of mode, or you have different activities involved. So how can you add new configuration? Is it possible to add new configuration? How can you do it? Has anybody added that? Yeah, definitely, yes. Using configuration manager, you can go and define new configuration. You can copy an existing configuration and define a new configuration and then decide which DLLs are going to be built and in which mode, any CPU or x86 or right. That way you can change the build configuration. So you have to actually use multiple build configurations if you are using 2 or 3 environments, right? That means, I'll show you. I'll explain. Okay, if you have a QA server, if you have a UAT server, now the web config in your website that goes into QA, can it work on UAT? Exactly, if you have connection sort of information. No, they have to be changed. So what should happen? That web config transformation should happen depending on the configuration that you are building, right? So is it possible to transform your configuration? Do you guys have done that? Anybody? Yeah, right? It is possible. Now, can you see this one?
I'll reload this project.
Right? Now, have a look at this web config. This is web debug, right? Then this is web QA. That is one new configuration that I have increased. Now, web release. So you can add web production, web UAT, whatever, right? So you can ask this intermediate file to override certain things in your default web config. See, now I am asking to insert this tag into the web config or remove attributes debug from the compilation. Why? Now, when you are doing a QA build, do you have to build it in the debug mode? No, it should be built in release mode. So I am removing the attribute debug. So this is the way you should use these things, right? Normally what we do, we just keep a copy of our very good QA configuration and make sure it is copied to somewhere else before we do the release, and we release and we override the web config. But someone has added certain entries into the web config and we are overriding that as well, and our build starts, release starts to fail. Does this not happen to them? Not happen at all. Or this is happening, okay, right? This is happening, right? I mean, this is happening because we don't automate things. That is why I told you there are a lot of advantages, right? So this is one way of doing that. Now, can we do this integrated with CFS build? Yes, it is possible, but you need to set up certain things, right? So I will show a few things how to set up these things. Okay, that is one part. So there can be even your own configuration files like config or something, .config files, right? You can define .config files or whatever extension you can give, .ini or something, right? Can you make them transform as well using PFS? If you want, yes, you can still customize things, right? That is a bit of advanced way of doing things, but still you can do that. You can write certain activities to override settings, right? If you want, right? We cannot say anything is impossible. That can be done, because as long as you can add steps into the build workflow, that means you can change anything, right? You can even remove old file if you want, right? If you want. Actually, what we are doing is, you know, where are the version in an assembly? Anybody knows? Okay, I will give you this one. If somebody tells me where the version of an assembly is specified, where is it specified? Exact file name? I'm not sure you are using different things. Where is that?
Config.
Is there a file called assembly? That's the file. I mean, when you look at this one. It is assembly info CS, right? And you should know these things. This is the place where you define whether your assembly is CLS compliant, whether your assembly is what is the version or other assembly is receiving manifest info. Now, knowing assembly info.cs is a must, right? You should know that is the file. So actually in our build versioning, when we are changing version numbers, we actually using the build script, we edit this file in the TFSI without checking it in. We just remove the read-only flag and edit it, and then change the version number and compile, and we don't check in anything in our TFS build. Okay. So that way we are changing to our own version numbering, right? Without using the date and the revision number. Now when you see a TFS build, it will be always date and a revision number. So that's not the way we are doing. We are going to give 1057 or something, depending on the version, right? 4 number version. Okay, so I can't give something. Okay, that is one thing, right? So you have to keep all these things in mind to do a deployment, right? And you need to worry about the versioning. You need to worry about how to add gap, how to add to gap, and you need to worry about how to configure IIS, right, if required. So all these things you have to think how to do, right? So whatever you are doing manually, right? If you want to actually give a different version number to your assembly, what do? You go here and then change it here. So what we have done there in the build, we have actually automated that step, doing one-time code and making sure every time we can customize and use it just by changing a configuration value, right? So that's the way you should think. Okay. Now you have seen the build definition of a CA build. So what will happen if I just checking some code? Shall we checking some code just to show you what happened? Okay. What I will do is, this is a very bad way to do things, but I will just add some text here, right, just to show you, and then check it, right? Okay. I will just say more. All these being get in. So what happens? Okay. If I go to build, see, there will be sometimes this gets refreshed a little later, right? But you can see build is initiated automatically. I didn't give anything, right? I just checked in my code and build gets initiated, right? And it executes the compiling and makes sure the server version is compilable or not, right? And you can set up an alert to get if the build fails. You have seen that, right? There's an alert. You can set alerts in TFS. You know, right? Okay. You can set alerts to get if the build fails. Right? So that way you will get email notifications to your mailbox if the build fails. And certain people and certain officers, they have set up a bulb or something using a USB device. They have written certain components, and then that bulb goes off when the CI build fails. Right? So everybody knows. Then the moron has to stand up and say, I am the person who has programmed it. That's a good practice, right? So the people will start to discipline. Right? They will start to learn not to break the build. Right? It's very important when you are working on a distributed environment. Why? If our Canadian part in our team mess around with the source code and just check in and go, right? We don't know what they have done. We have to wait till next day, because gap will be 12-hour difference or 10-hour difference. We have to wait till next morning their time to catch them. What the hell you have done, right? So to check that, we have to wait a day. So we have to waste our day checking for a solution what they have done, right? But this one makes sure they get alerted immediately about their break. So they can either fix it or let us know details about how to fix it. That's okay, right? They don't have to fix it in the night time. They can just send us an email saying, this is what we have done, just check this part and fix it. Right? That will improve our productivity. Okay, so this is how CI happens. Now this is how we make sure this version is compiled. Right? Okay, now to set up this environment, okay, I have taken 10 minutes. So what shall we do is, I think I should end this in 5 to 10 minutes, right? So I will explain how to set up this environment, and I will show you the end result, right? How it works, and then engage, and we can do the balance of it in the next session, right? So to set up this environment, there are a few requirements. You have to set up a test controller. Test controller is a mandatory thing, right? A test controller can be defined for only one project collection, right? You can define multiple test controllers, but one test controller can use only a single project collection. You know what is a project collection in PSS, right? It's group of people, right? You define for certain grouping, and that grouping depends on how you do it, right? I mean, for example, we have a group called client to define our client project, and we have internal project in internal, and we have a sandbox collection to just do for us to play around and see things how it works, right? So that way you can define your own group. So that for a particular group only you can define a build server or a build controller or a test controller. Now in the build environment, what will happen is, in a project collection you can have multiple build controllers, right? So each build controller, this is build service, so you can have multiple build agents. So build agents will be the actual server that will be doing the build. Now this number of build agents per physical server depends on what? Depends on what? Number of build servers, build agents in a physical machine depends on what? Number of what? Can you guess? Anybody can guess? Depends on what? Think about multi-threading, multitasking.
Course.
You can course. It's depending on, okay, I give it to you. It's depending on the number of cores in your CPU, right? So if you have 4 core machine, you can define 4 build agents in that particular build machine. It's okay for you to define 6 build agents, but what will happen? Right? It will slow down the thing. Why? Only one core can perform a serial set of actions. So it is pointless to define 2 agents in a one core machine. Right? You should define depending on the number of cores. Right? So that's the way to define. Okay. So same way you can have test controllers and test agents in project collection. Right? So this test controller and test agent is mandatory in your lab environment. Right? To set up a lab environment, you should have a test controller in your project collection plus whatever the environment that you are adding, standard environment machine or a VM machine, will automatically get installed with a test agent. So this test agent and test controller will be communicating to synchronize the deployment test. Right? So that is the theory. Right? So how to do it is a bit of work. Right? I mean, installing a test controller is not a problem, but configuring it will be a problem if you don't properly set up your domain. Right? If you have a domain, you should properly have domain accounts and their rights properly, and lab running account should be running as a logon as a service. Right? you can run as a service, right? Run as a service, permission should be there in the domain, right? To run build test controller service, right? So I will show details of that later, but I will show you now the already set up lab environment, right? And this is you can see with only one machine I have set up a lab environment. So I will just open it and show you what is there, right? You can specify a name and you can specify machine. You can add many machines here, right? You can specify the machine, and this should be a username and a password which is capable of accessing all the machines in this particular environment. Now, in a workgroup scenario, what should you do? In a workgroup scenario, you add same username and password into each of the machines and specify here dot that username and password. So it will automatically access all the machines without an issue. Why? Dot means local, right? So local, that username and password will work. So, but you have to use a single username and password for this, right? And that password should set to never expire, right? Otherwise you will have to modify it, right? So those things are basic, right? Okay. So this is how you set the environment, and then these are the machine specific tags. You can define certain tags like to identify the thing, right? So you can define you have using these tags also you can run certain scripts, right? So I will explain the details later. Right now, not right now. It will be a huge topic. And here is where you specify the controller, test controller. Now, my test controller is installed in the domain controller. Domain controller is in the name of ALM2012. So that is why my test controller name is ALM2012. This is the machine name, right? Test controller machine name, right? And you can define configure the environment to run unit test. Now, since I didn't create any unit test, I didn't configure this part, right? Then you can actually verify and create this lab environment. Just go out of this, right? So once you create it properly, this QA machine will be installed with the test agent, and you can see the machine here. And if you want to even connect from here, still it is possible, right? This is connected to the environment. This is not connecting remote to anything. MSTSC is not used here. I am connecting to this machine using the lab environment. You can just log into those machines you can connect, right? So it is actually integrating the machine, right? So so we don't have time for all the build, script editing and stuff, but I will show you the build log, and then you can identify what has happened. And this is a deployment build, and the thing is this deployment build can actually queue another build, right? Deployment build is a build that will be queuing another build to build the source code and then start working on the lab environment to do the deployment, right? So that's the way it works. So that is why here it queues the build, do the build. If the build is necessary, do the build. This can also use the already built copy or queue a build, right? These two options are available. So I will show you in another way how to take it. Then once you do the build, right? Then get the build location and build number. This is one activity that I have added using my code, right? Zip the build output. Now, in that build output folder, once TFS writes all the files in the build output, I am creating a zip file using IO compression. I am creating a zip file out of that. Why? Why do I need to do that? Can anybody guess that? And get this one. Why do we need to zip a file before copying to deployment environment?
When you use more files, it will take like
Exactly. Right? Normally in your website there may be so many icon, images and lot of stuff, right? So if you don't zip it, right, copying file by file will be taking lot of time, even if they are small kilobyte files,
right? But if you zip it in your machine and copy the zip file and extract, it will take very less time, right? That's the truth. So that is why I have added this step, the zip it, right? Right? Then it actually starting the deployment. Okay, this is the end result that we are going to, right? And then it actually deploys like this, right? Then it even can add files to Git. See, adding assemblies to Git, right? Adding assemblies to Git completed, like that. So all these things and deploying the website, right? All these things can be automated. So to show you how, I need actually more time. Right? It's not easy, right? Because first you guys should get the concept, then you guys should know how to do it. So I think we can have a look at how to do maybe in a coming month, right? I hope we should finish it right now because I have taken about 20 minutes more. But I have covered in my 1 hour. Okay. So any questions? I know you have a lot of questions how to do this. So if anybody is interested in really doing this, just send me an email or something. I'll try to help. Okay? Because actually we want you to use these things. Okay? So if anybody is interested in trying this out, let me know. I will definitely help. Okay? We have a lot of experience in these things, so we will share. Okay, any more questions? You can have some questions and then go.